Welcome to Mostly Minutia. I'm Colleen Lindell, and this is episode 34, #metoo. Obviously, with all the current sex allegations, most of us can already guess just how this story is about to end. But to begin this story, we do need a little backstory, and this particular scenario opens in Los Angeles. It's 1994, and little Miss Cheli Clayton is just at the budding of her film career, on the set of a movie that goes by the name Nixon. This is a career Cheli never in her wildest dreams planned on having, but one nonetheless that had traveled to her backyard of Louisville, Kentucky, and then ultimately moved her to Los Angeles, where she has spent the past 23 years working on a plethora of movies and TV shows as a camera assistant. In this story, there are a lot of names mentioned, and at times it might feel like you're reading a Russian novel equivalent to Anna Karenina. Please, as the listener, do not feel the need to latch on to most of these names. If anything, let these names simply wash over you as the christening of truth on the right place, right time, who you know when it comes to getting a job in Hollywood. And as I imagine, that's probably true for most places. There are a few key players to this story, and these names you will want to hold on to. And I understand that most people listening have zero first-hand experience when it comes to the hierarchy that goes along with the camera department. So let me explain that first, because this will help you better understand the story. In the camera department, there are 5 key people. There's the cinematographer, also known as the DP, which stands for Director of Photography. In a perfect world, each camera on set will have 3 people attached to it. You have the camera operator, whose only job, and mind you, I'm generously paraphrasing a lot of these job duties. You have the camera operator whose only job is to keep the subject that's in the frame, in the frame. You then have the focus puller, also known as the first AC or first assistant. This is what Cheli Clayton's job is. The focus puller's job is to keep the subject that's in the frame in focus, hence the nickname focus puller. You then have the second assistant, or second AC, who does a whole pile of things, and I don't think it's possible to paraphrase what they do exactly. But the simplest way I can put it is when you see outtakes on movies, and you see the slate come into the frame, and they say, "Scene 21, take 1," and then they clap the slate. That is something that the second AC does. And then finally, at the bottom of the ladder, you have the loader, which is the entry-level position to the camera department, and that person handles all the footage. Now, the key players to this story that you will want to remember are as follows. First of all, we have Bob. He is our DP, or cinematographer. Then we have Gregor. He's the first AC, or focus puller. Rick is our second assistant. Then we have Lenny. He is the production manager. And finally, to add the cherry on top, we have Mr. Oliver Stone, the director. I think that does it. I think you have all the tools you'll need to navigate through this story. Here is Cheli Clayton sharing her #metoo story.
The very first movie I worked on was a little movie in Kentucky, and it was called Saratoga Summer when we shot it, but it ended up being called A Horse for Danny. And on that movie, I was the camera PA, but I didn't start out as the camera PA. I started out as assistant to craft service, which is very funny because I quit my UPS job, which I was, climbing that corporate ladder, heading towards the 3 weeks vacation and stock options and all of that sort of thing, which just made me want to cringe, thinking I was going to have to go to this place every day for the rest of my life. And everyone just thought I was crazy to be quitting this UPS job to go and work on a movie doing snacks. And I was like, this is going to be so cool. They're going to pay me $100 a day. I'm so amazing. I thought I was going to be rich. So the first day I get to set and the craft service guy is like sitting on the truck. He puts out 2 bowls of like packaged crackers and makes a pot of coffee and he reads a book. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? So I proceed to go around and talk to everyone on the crew. And I'm like, well, if you could have one thing on the craft service table, what would it be? And everyone gave me something. One guy, he said, Cheli, I'd love to have watermelon Jolly Ranchers. And I was like, ooh, good idea. Another woman said, ooh, Tab Cola. So I went shopping that day and I brought the thing that everyone wanted and everyone was so happy. So then they said, the next thing we want is cappuccinos. So I went and bought a cappuccino machine and started making cappuccinos. So day one, everyone wanted a cappuccino. Day two, no one wanted a cappuccino. What does that tell you about my cappuccino making abilities? So shortly thereafter, the camera department, I have to go back to the camera department. There are these 3 lovely women in the camera department, the 2 second assistants, Celine, Jacqueline Nivens, who's still a camera assistant, and Maggie. And they were the 2 seconds and the loader. And so this was 1994, thought it was a normal thing that anybody could be in any department. It didn't occur to me that there was a men's department or a women's department or anything like that. It was just like, this is normal. And they were talking about that there was a lot of work. They had 5 cameras out and there were 2 camera crews and they were just, they were just really getting peeled. And I was like, hey guys, I'm just serving snacks. So if you need help, I'm more than happy to help. They were like, okay, well, we'll call you. And I was like, great. Because I was bored and I like the girls were so cool. They were like my kind of girls. They were like, I don't know. They just, I liked them. I liked them and they just seemed like my kind of people, so I was hanging out with them. So here we are on this big racetrack one day, and there's a pile of camera cases, and I see cameras going in all different directions, and so I just went over to the pile, and I was standing there and looking at them, and Celine looks at me and says, Cheli, grab the 11-to-1 and run over there. And I said, what's an 11-to-1? And she said, it's a big case, and it says 11-to-1 on it. And I was like, okay. So I ran over, and I picked up the 11-to-1 case, which is a very large, heavy case, and I put it on my shoulder and I ran across the field. She proceeded to look at the first AD, the first assistant director, and say, she's mine for the rest of the show.
Whoa.
I didn't know what I had done because I just finished working 5 years at UPS, so this was nothing for me to pick up a heavy case and put it on my shoulder.
Oh my gosh.
So
the 11-to-1 is a huge lens.
It's huge.
It's like a
huge.
bazooka size.
Yeah, it's a big one. And now I won't even carry an 11-to-1 by myself now. That's just terrible. I like my spine too much for that. But at the time, I just wanted to help. So the craft service guy said, okay, you can have her, but she's got to come and help me set up in the morning, and she's got to help me wrap out at night. But you can have her the rest of the time during the day. So for the rest of that show, I was in the camera department. And it was great, and I loved it, and it was so much fun. After that movie ended, clearly I didn't have a job, and I was in Louisville, Kentucky. And UPS was not an option anymore. So I came out to San Diego to visit my uncle. And while I was there visiting him, I said, I really want to go and check out Los Angeles because I knew 2 people. One of them was Susan Carpenter. She was one of the PAs on the movie. And the other guy was Alan Frazier, an electrician. So I called and Susan answered. And she said, oh, I'm working on a movie called Virtuosity. And we're here at Paramount. They're looking for a camera PA. Do you want to come and visit? And I was like, yeah. So I rented a car and I drove up and drove onto the lot and I met the camera assistants and they were lovely. They were so nice and they were like, yes, we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you. When can you start? And I was like, well, I need to fly back to Kentucky and get my car and drive back out here. And they were like, okay, how soon can you be here? And I was like, a few days. So I drove back to San Diego, flew to Louisville, Kentucky. I told my boyfriend I'm moving to California. Drove to California, got there in 3.5 days, called them up and said, hey, it's Cheli Clayton and I'm here. And they were like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry, but the producer has a son and we have to hire him. And I was like, oh, welcome to Hollywood. Okay, well, I'm here. I finally made it to California.
Had you had dreams of moving to California?
Yes, I did. When I was 15, my parents split up, and my uncle, who lived in San Diego, sent us plane tickets, my sisters and my mom and I, to come and visit because he wanted to convince us to move here. I got off the plane in San Diego and walked outside, and it was like, oh my God, okay. this is where I'm supposed to be. No wonder I never liked it. Or I just never felt comfortable in Louisville. I always felt like an outcast. Even though I'm sure I probably wasn't, I felt that way. And I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. People don't leave Louisville. Louisville's a great place to live, and people just don't leave. So I had to figure out how I was going to make it work. So I finished high school, I went to college, and just was always like, how am I going to get out there? How am I going to get out there? And anytime I could save up enough money, I would buy a ticket and I would go and visit my cousin. I kept trying, and something was always disrupting. Something would happen, somebody would happen. Oh gosh, when I think about the roadblocks that stopped me from coming to California, I'm just, but they made me who I am. So...
And you made it.
And I made it. So,
I mean, how old were you when you moved here?
20. I just turned 27 when I moved here. It was great. It was like I was ready to start a new life, and found some odd jobs. Worked a couple of weeks doing payroll for a movie called Boys on the Side, and that's when I started reading all the contracts, like actors' contracts and camera assistant contract, all the contracts, and so that's when I learned how much everybody made and all of that. It was very educational. And then I worked on this little movie called Too Young to Die, but it was really too broke to shoot because they ran out of money within 3 weeks. So. But that was fun. And then after that ended, I had come out here with a savings in my pocket. So I at least had some money. I was sleeping on a couch. And then I still hadn't been able to get a hold of my friend Alan Frazier. So I finally got in touch with him. And he said, I'm working on this movie up in Santa Barbara. And it's called Steal Big, Steal Little. Come up and visit us, and I'll introduce you to the camera department. So I drove up to Santa Barbara. I met the whole camera department. They were lovely, but they were really busy. I didn't want to get in the way. But Suzanne said to me, hey, my friend Rick is prepping for a movie at Panavision Tarzana. You should call him because I know he needs some help prepping. So I said, okay, great. And so I went to the payphone, and I called him. And I said, hi, my name is Cheli Clayton, and Suzanne Trucks told me that you needed some help prepping, and I'd really love to learn about the camera department. He was like, great, yeah, come on over, I'm here. So I got back in my car, and I drove to Panavision Tarzana, and I went in, and I said, I'm here, and I'm ready. And he handed me a razor, some scrubbing bubbles, and like a hot iron blow dryer kind of thing. And I was like, what? And he's like, you're going to clean cases. So I spent the next 2 weeks coming in every day for about 10 hours a day, working for free, scrubbing the mountain of cases that were in the prep room.
Wow.
And the first AC, Gregor, he just kind of looked at me, but he didn't really talk to me. And so every day I thought, maybe he's going to talk to me today. But nope, he didn't talk to me, But that was fine. I was just going to do my job. So finally, about 2 or 3 days before we were set to start shooting, they were shipping out, a phone call came in. And it was from the woman who normally worked as the video assist. In this case, it was called the video waitress because this movie was directed by Oliver Stone. And so this person was his video waitress. That's what they called her. So she called, and her car had broken down, and she was driving from somewhere in the Midwest. I can't remember exactly what town, but somewhere in the Midwest, and she was not going to make it for the first day of shooting. And she wasn't, in fact, it was going to be the first week of shooting. She wasn't going to make it. So I could hear Gregor talking on the phone to this woman, and he said, hang on a minute. And he turned around, and he looked at me, and he said, are you available next week? And I said, yes, I am. And he says, I got you covered. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have a job. So I go in day one, and they show me this huge cart, which had this monitor that was a monster on it. And there was cup holders all around it, and Oliver liked to have this kind of a tent built around it. So it was very difficult when you needed to plug things in and adjust things to get in there without being in his face. Mm-hmm. And I, just moved from Kentucky. I was still pretty, I had on my tie-dye T-shirts and my baggy cut-off jeans and my long hair, and still kind of hippie chick from the Midwest. Not very sexy, I would say. but comfortable because I'm thinking I got to carry heavy things. I got to be comfortable, and I'm having to adjust and move around Oliver's monitor. And this
is like a viewing station, right?
Yeah.
This is like so that the director can watch
Exactly.
what's being filmed.
Right. And he doesn't have to have everyone, a bunch of people around him. He doesn't want to have a whole lot of people looking over his shoulder. He wants his privacy to look at it, which is totally fine. So I was
And you're the only one that's responsible for moving this around.
Right. So this is my whole job, is to make sure that this is moved, that it's plugged in, make sure his chairs are there, and to make sure the tent is in place. And then, if he needs coffee, get him coffee. So I'm like, I can do this. This sounds great. Mm-hmm. And he seems friendly enough. So partway through the day, he needs his monitor adjusted. And so I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get in there because he's right on top of the monitor. And I don't quite know how to get in there to adjust it. So I kind of go to the side of the monitor and I kind of bend to the side and reach around in front of him. And I'm like, excuse me, I just need to adjust this. And then before you know it, that man reaches around, full hand grabs not my butt, but my crotch. And I spun around so fast, I stuck my finger in his face and said, I don't care who you think you are. You do not touch me. And he sat back straight up in his chair with the look of shock in his face. And he looks over to Bob, the DP, and says, Bob, I like this one. Let's keep her. And I didn't understand what that meant, but I was like, he knows my boundary. He's not going to do that again.
Cheli, he reached around underneath the shorts that you were wearing and just like through your legs and just grabs your crotch.
Yeah. Full grab. And no one had ever grabbed me. Well, I take that back. 8th grade, first day, I got bused down to a school called Parkland, and I got off of the bus, and some boy came and grabbed me in the crotch, and I was like, what the hell just happened? Besides that.
I was going to say as a joke, but that was a peer. That was different. But it's not different at all.
No.
This is like, Oliver Stone is like an older dude.
Yeah, an older Hollywood powerful man, which I think at that time in my life, I didn't even understand what Hollywood power meant. And I'm glad, though, because it just didn't matter to me who he was. I just knew that wasn't okay. And I wasn't going to let it even slide. Like, no, I'm sorry. You don't do that. This is me. This is my body. Your hands stay to yourself. I'm here working for you, but that doesn't give you any reason to be able, any justification for touching my body. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
And you spun around and you said that
immediately
to him so fast. Like,
oh, yeah. There was no question. He jolted back in his seat. He sat upright and was shocked. And that's when he looked at Bob and said, Bob, I like this one. Let's keep her. And I was kind of shocked by it, and I didn't know really what he meant. He called the production manager over, Lenny. Lenny, come here. Let's give this girl a job. So Lenny came over and he said, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And I said, I camera. That's what I'm trying to do is camera. He said, okay, so camera PA? I was like, that sounds great.
This is all happening real
right.
time.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, $100 a day okay for you? And I'm like, oh my God, that'd be amazing. He's like, okay, fine. So you'll be the camera PA. And he looks over at the camera department and says, hey guys, you got your camera PA. And they've all looked at me and did not seem very happy about it. And I was like, oh, what's going on? I didn't understand. It was so new. I didn't really understand it. Now I understand. They probably had somebody else they wanted to hire, and they wouldn't let them hire them. And now they had someone forced on them, who was this person that Oliver had just groped and stuck her finger in his face. Yeah. So now I understand it. At the time, it was just like, wow, this is great. I have a job. And I've only been here for 3 months. This is amazing. So I proceeded to come in every day to work. And they would let me do things like change the dates on the slate. I could carry batteries in and out. And I think that's all they would let me do. They would not let me do much. But I did my best to do everything they asked me to do perfectly. And I just, every day was just trying to do my best. Just trying to do my best every day. I remember the first day Bob came in. Bob was the DP. He threw his jacket at me and his briefcase. And he says, these are yours. And that's pretty much the only thing he ever said to me was, these are yours. And I just thought, okay, these are my responsibility. So I would take those in the morning and put them away. And then at night I would go get them and I would hand them to him as he was leaving. The first day he still didn't ever talk to me. I don't know why. But I just still kept hoping because I thought, I wanted them all to be happy with me. I wanted to do a good job for them because I was raised to have a strong work ethic, and I just wanted to do my best. Mm-hmm. And so, weeks went by and everything seemed really good. Oliver sort of kept needling me. He didn't touch me again. There was one time he walked by me and tried to poke me in the stomach. And I, again, was like, what are you doing? But he still kept needling me, kept like making suggestive comments. And I just kept like shrugging him off and going, what's wrong with you? And it didn't change my attitude at all. And his assistant, Richard, would continually come and say, hey, after work, we're going to go do this tonight. You want to come? And I was like, no, I'm busy. No, I'm busy. And then on one Thursday night, about a month in, Richard came up to me and said, hey, tonight you're coming out with us. We're going to send the car around to the camera truck after work, and you're coming with us tonight. And I had just met this guy. His name is Yanni. Anyone who knows me now, he's my husband. I just met him recently, and we were going out that night. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet of you, but I do have other plans. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm not going out with these guys in a limo. I mean, it just doesn't sound right. Like something inside of me was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, we're going to send the car around.
Yeah, I don't know.
You.
It just
like
sounded
you're like a call girl or something.
Yeah, it just didn't sound right to me. So Friday night, the next night, we're wrapping out, and everyone is gone off the truck. Gregor leaves, doesn't say goodbye, anything. And I'm like, goodbye, and doesn't say a word, doesn't even look at me. And so the last two people on the truck are me and Rick. And he's like, so something I have to tell you. And I was like, what's up? And he's like, I'm afraid today was your last day. And I was like, what? Why? He says, well, we've decided that we really need someone with more experience. And I was like, I'm the camera PA. This is the point where you get the experience.
Right.
And I also thought, wait, no, I'm on this job. Like I'm hired on this job.
Yeah.
You can't just I didn't understand. I was so upset. I saw Lenny and I was like, Lenny, what's going on? He's like, yeah, I don't know. It's out of my hands. It's out of my hands. I was like, but I don't understand. And the only thing I could think of was that Gregor didn't like me and he must have had somebody else that he wanted to hire. So that was what was in my mind. I was upset. I was super upset. But I was like, okay, so we move on. And so I ended up getting another call maybe a week later to go and work on another movie where they needed a video playback person, which is basically a camera PA that we used to have these, they were called combo 8s, where it allowed the directors to watch the shot back again after each take. So they hired me to do that. And at the time they didn't have a film loader, so I convinced the second AC to let me load as well. And it was actually a movie called Bound, which was Andy and Larry Wachowski's first movie, the guys from Matrix, which are now the sisters. Mm-hmm. They were the brothers, now they're the sisters. Mm-hmm. That's a crazy story. That's for another day. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and the DP was a lovely human being named Bill Pope, who's also from Kentucky. And we hit it off immediately. And it was great. The funny thing was so I worked on that movie, and then right after that one, I worked on another movie. And so by the time I finished those two movies, I had my days and got into the union as a second assistant, because on the second movie I was a second. And the same week that I got into the union as the second AC was the week that Nixon wrapped. So I wouldn't have gotten into the union quite as quickly. So it just seemed to me that it worked out. Cut to 7 years later. I've worked on a lot of jobs, a lot of big movies, I have gotten a lot of experience. Mm-hmm. And now I'm a very competent second assistant. I've worked as a first assistant. I've really gone to the Hollywood school. And I get a phone call from my friend Kelly to come in and fill in for somebody on a movie called Kill Bill. I went in and I found out when I got there, the first AC that I was going to be working with was Gregor. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe 7 years later I'm going to work with him. This is so funny. So I got there and he didn't recognize me. At the time when I worked with him before, I had really long hair and now my hair was super short. So he didn't recognize me and I didn't say anything. At the end of the day, after working with him, where he's talking to me all day, he is complimenting me that I am a hard worker and he likes how I'm working and everything's going well. In the camera truck at the end of the night, I said, you don't remember me, do you? And he said, no, have we worked together before? I pulled out my driver's license picture And he looked at me and he goes, "Oh my gosh, you're the one we had to fire because you wouldn't sleep with Oliver." And my mouth dropped. And I said, "And all along, I thought it was you." How's that for a Hollywood moment? Or how's that for a Hollywood? Can I say that?
You can say that.
How's that for a Hollywood fuck you? I guess at that point, I kind of laughed because I thought, how many other people did he do that to? But then again, how many other people just let it happen to them? And I can say that I felt very vindicated. Like, it wasn't that I wasn't good at my job. It wasn't that I wasn't a hard worker. It was because I didn't give in to some big Hollywood monster. And I love it. I love it. I told my daughter this story. Only before I told her the story, I said, "Do you know what sexual harassment is? Do you know what it means?" And she didn't understand. So I told her about it. And I told her about some stories that had been happening with other people. And then I said, I had a similar story happen to me. What do you think I did? She said, "Oh, Mom, I got to believe you kicked him in the face." And that was the best thing ever, because I said, "Close." I did stick my finger in his face. I just thought, I'm so glad that, she's 11 years old, that she knows that her mom would not let something like that happen to her, would not tolerate that. And she wouldn't let that happen either, And that's what I think we're doing now, is we're educating our kids now not to let things like that happen. I don't know if I had understood and if I wanted to get ahead, but I wasn't looking to get ahead. I wanted to move to California. Hey, I'd already done that. Now I just wanted to work and pay for it. But I certainly wasn't going to let anyone grope me to get there, because, I did learn from that lesson too, that, that job went away, but another one came. And for 23 years, jobs have been coming. And not because I'm flirting, and not because I'm letting people touch me and grab me, or I'm showing cleavage, or I'm bending over and showing my thong, or anything like that. It's because I'm coming to work. I'm doing my best. I'm hopefully having a good attitude most of the time. And I hope I'm getting the job done. Would it be okay if I touched on the family aspect of this a little bit?
Yes, please.
Okay. In our department, you start as a camera PA, then you work as a loader, then you work as a second AC. And as I was working as a second AC, one of the camera operators I was working with, Mike, he's awesome. He's really, really great camera operator. He's retired now, but he's just a lovely, lovely man. And he said, "Cheli, you know why there's not so many female first assistants and camera operators, and why we don't tend to like having females in the camera department?" And I said, "Why?" Oh, wait, can I back up with something there? Okay, so on one of my first movies as a second AC, I was working, and the first day, the original A-camera first AC had to leave because he got another job. And so they brought in another first AC. His name was Al. And he came in and came onto the camera truck after we all met the night before, and he was very friendly. And he came onto the camera truck the next day, and nobody else was there but me. And he walked on, and he looked at me, and he said, "If this was my show, you wouldn't be here, because chicks don't belong in the camera department." And I was a bit taken aback by that. I was like, what is he talking about? Like, I didn't even understand it. Didn't even understand it. But he did proceed to make my life a living hell for that movie, and halfway through another, when I said, I don't need to be tortured by this person. There's a lot of other people out there to work for, and I just don't need to be in this atmosphere or work for people that hire this person. So I've then went on to work in many other places where there were all female camera crews. It just never occurred to me that I just thought this is just a one-off kind of a person. But there were other people throughout the years where they thought women shouldn't be in the camera department. So it was on this movie that I was working with Mike, and he said, "You know why, Cheli? Do you know why some of these people don't like to hire women?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because we put a lot of time and effort into training people. And women, once they have babies, they disappear. And then you've put all this time and energy into training them, and they're just gone. So we just don't want to waste our time, because you guys are going to go have babies, and then you're going to be gone. Well, as usual, if you tell me something that I can't do, I'm going to prove you wrong. And so, no, you can. So what did I do? I had babies, and I continued to work. And here was somebody, I didn't even think I was going to have babies, and then I did. I had babies.
Really? You
so.
didn't think you would have children?
I don't know. I don't know. It just hadn't occurred to me, and I didn't. It didn't start to hit me that I really wanted them. And then I met Jamie Stevens, and Jamie Stevens, another camera assistant, she had a 3-year-old, and she was doing it, and I was like, "Wow, you can totally do it." And she's like, "Yeah, you can totally do it." I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll do it. And so I ended up getting pregnant, and I did 3 movies while I was pregnant. But granted, I already had them lined up. Nobody knew I was pregnant when I got the job. So I didn't tell anyone I was pregnant. And then I proceeded to work all the way up until 4 weeks before Lenny was born. And then took off for about 6 months. Did, paid family leave and unemployment and all of that. And then when I went back to work, I thought, I don't really want to do full-time jobs right now. I need to be able to pay the monthly nut. So how much is that? And I figured out at the time it was like 7 days of work. And then I still needed to be able to feed my child, so I brought the pump with me to work every day, and it seemed fine. And it never didn't work for me. Like, I just came into work and would every 3 hours I would say, "Someone cover me for 10 minutes," and I would go and I would pump. And it was always during a setup or a turnaround or something like that where I had the time. I would go and pump. I had a little cooler bag, and then at the end of the day, I had her food for the next day. And I always ran into people that were very helpful with that. Like, I never had a problem with anyone saying that, "Oh no, we don't have time," or "We're not going to hire you because of that." Never had a problem with that. So in a way, I kind of proved them wrong, and I pumped for 2 years and never had a problem. And then had another child. 3 years later, I got pregnant again. This time, however, people found out faster, and my phone stopped ringing. It was the first time that my phone stopped ringing in the whole time that I had lived here. And
Wow.
I knew exactly why. It's because people found out, and people just didn't understand that you can still work pregnant. And it's okay. It's just like, it's like anything else. The funny thing was, I remember seeing a picture that a guy posted on Facebook, how it was a man who was threading a mag with one hand in a bandage and the other one free. So he had one hand, and they were still hiring him. Me with 2 good hands couldn't get a job because I had a baby in my belly. And I was like, okay, I see the standard here. I see. And it made me mad, but at the same time, it's like, it's fine. I'm going to spend this time with my daughter. It's good. I'll go on disability. I didn't hold it against anybody. It was just like, this is what makes them comfortable. So fine. I'm going to move on. I'm not going to worry about this. This is going to be what's best for my life. And it ended up being great. I planted a garden, and my daughter and I spent 6 months hanging out together. And since then, I have noticed more and more women people don't even understand now that, like, women are all over the place in the camera department, where when I first started, there weren't that many. I didn't think it was abnormal. I just noticed there weren't that many. Now they're everywhere, which is great. And I hope that all the women who are in the camera department today are appreciative of all the people, and even the ones before me, who came and sort of paved the way to make it so much easier for them now. And now all those Als out there are slowly retiring, which is great, because it's a new attitude now, and anybody can be in the camera department. Anybody. Anybody can be in any department. Like, we're all able-bodied, smart, intelligent people that can do this job. It's nice to see it just coming around full circle. And I feel like I'm also very fortunate to have watched the change happen.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that.
Lastly, because I know that you have to go, how have you seen the environment on set as a whole change in becoming more family-friendly or more welcoming? Yeah,
well, I say that there are a lot of, in my case, director of photographies, who are our bosses, who are much more open and family friendly.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that I tend to like to work for, because the family is the most important part of a person. And I think to say that on a 10-month television show or a 5-month movie that someone can't have a day off to take their kids trick-or-treating or for their child's birthday or for a special event, there's nothing so important that we're doing on set that somebody else can't do. And particularly in my position as a camera assistant, it is a technical position. And if I need to take a day off, I should be able to bring in somebody that I trust to do that job. And everyone should be okay with that. There's an old school thinking that, no, you have to be there every single day. And if you take a day off, then you are not committed to this film. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that, because there are many, many broken homes and broken families in our industry because people put that first instead of their family. And then there are many families that are together because people put their family as their priority. And I think you can put your family as your priority and still be successful in this career, in this job. I find that the people that I have worked for over the years have largely been those kind of people. And I migrate to those people, and I love those people, because that's what you want to be surrounded by. You want to be surrounded by family people if you're a family person. If you're not, there are plenty of other groups like that out there, and go for it and have fun and, just live life on the road with your crew. And that's great too. That's their choice. And who am I to say if I wasn't a single person that I wouldn't love that as well. But I think family's the most important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's worth mentioning that during our interview, I said to Cheli, I think you're so brave in sharing your story. And she said, I want you to know I don't think I'm brave in sharing my story. I've been sharing my story for the past 23 years to anyone who would listen. When I was in high school, a movie came out called JFK. It was directed by Oliver Stone. Gary Oldman was in it, and I love Gary Oldman. And I said to my mom, who is a major film buff and who also likes Gary Oldman, Mom, you have any interest in seeing this movie? She replied, No, I don't like Oliver Stone. He exaggerates. And plus, I think he's yucky. What do you mean by that? I asked. I don't know. There's just something about him that's yucky. A few months ago, I was reading an article in Newsweek that announced Oliver Stone's coming out in defense of Miramax co-founder Harvey Weinstein. And sadly, I was not surprised by this news. But what did interest me and kind of chilled me to the bone was Oliver's quote in regards to allegations against Harvey Weinstein. He says, quote, I'm a believer that you wait until this thing gets to trial. I believe a man shouldn't be condemned by a vigilante system. It's not easy what he's going through either. During that period, he was a rival. I never did business with him and didn't really know him. I've heard horror stories on everyone in the business, so I'm not going to comment on gossip. I'll wait and see which is the right thing to do. Let me just read the beginning 2 sentences again. I'm a believer that you wait until this thing gets to trial. I believe a man shouldn't be condemned by a vigilante system. Is it just me, or did anyone else just hear, I believe a man shouldn't be condemned by a vagina system? Is that the subtext of that text? And the part about, I believe that you wait until this thing gets to trial. This thing, this thing, this thing. My friend, you are already at your trial. The cat is out of the bag, literally and figuratively. Why are you hiding behind our judicial system? Is it perhaps because you are afraid of getting stoned, Mr. Stone? If you have a Me Too story that you would like to share or that you need to share, you are welcome to do it on this show. Please email me or send me a message on Instagram at mostlyminutia or mostlyminutia@gmail.com. That's MINUTIA. There are links to these as well as a link to the Newsweek article in this episode's description, which you can find wherever you're currently listening to this episode. Just scroll down and you'll see it right there. Also, right after this is a bonus story also by Cheli Clayton, depicting her time working with Clint Eastwood. And that story is polar opposite to this story and is sure to brighten your little spirit. Lastly, I know we're almost at the holidays, and my hope is to get the next story I've been working on to you before the end of the year. This next story I followed for over a year and deals with a woman who put into the universe that she was ready to meet her match. And she did. This story is called Make Space and will be a 2 to 3 part episode. I haven't decided yet. Oh, and lastly, Mostly Minutia was just picked up by Spotify, which makes me so excited. I've been trying to think of ways to make the show more accessible, and that just forged the path so much more. So thank you to Spotify, and thank you for listening. This episode of Mostly Minutia was recorded on location in the North Hollywood Arts District of Los Angeles, California.
So I got a call. I was working on this crazy zombie movie with a fun crew, but just awful hours and awful content. And I got a call to go work on the movie Jersey Boys, which Clint Eastwood was directing. If there's a family-friendly director out there, he's the one.
Tell us how he was treating you on set, though.
Well, so he was always very professional, friendly, just very much getting the job done. But his crew is very much his family. Like everyone feels like family because they've all worked together for so long, and you feel like a member of the family when you're there with him. And every day he would come up and give me a very chaste hug, and how are you today? And then he would whisper in my ear, "How are you today, little devil?" On my last day of shooting, he came by the camera truck to say goodbye, and he said, "Lady focus pullers, I've been doing this wrong all along." and I realized he'd never worked with a female focus puller before. And it was great. I think he enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It was a really fun job. Oh, another thing I wanted to say about Clint Eastwood was, so Clint Eastwood is also a very powerful man in Hollywood and has been. I did notice everywhere he went, whenever we were not rolling and there were extras around, the women, young and old, were flocking around this, at the time, 84-year-old man. 84 years old, and all these women were still just like, "Wah!" because he was just like bigger than life. He does have an effect on you. He does, like, there's something about him, and maybe it is because of his Hollywood persona, and he does have a way of speaking to you to make you feel like you're a person. He looks you in the eyes and he speaks to you. It's not like so many of these Hollywood people that are very important, very powerful, that think of everyone on the crew as cogs in their wheel. Like I didn't feel like a cog in the wheel. I felt like a part of the team. And that is something that I thought was lovely about Clint Eastwood. But he was very, very kind. And every day, after I met him, every day he would... Oh, wait, meeting him, it's a funny chocolate chip story that I am having with, too. Because I had chocolate chips all over my hands when I met him. Oh, God, I need to remember this. Because it's such a funny story. Oh, so I'm standing in line, and Clint Eastwood was next to me in the line. And I had reached for my chocolate chip cookie, and just as I reached for my chocolate chip cookie and put it on my plate, and I still had chocolate on my hand, he turned around and looked at me, and I said, "Hi, I'm Cheli Clayton. I'm one of the camera assistants. I'm one of the focus pullers." And he reached out and shook my hand. I was like, "Oh, pardon the chocolate chips." And he just laughed and, "Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you." And then that was it. So the next day, I went on to the catering truck looking for my camera operator to sit with him during lunch. And I saw him, and he motioned to me to come over and sit. I saw an open seat across from him, and I went over, and as I was coming into the seat, sidling down through the aisle to sit down next to him, I realized I would not only be sitting across from him, but I was also going to be sitting next to Mr. Eastwood. And I thought, oh no. I don't want to, nobody wants to be the person that sidles up next to the director when they first get there. Like, that's just, I was just like, oh no. I was so embarrassed, but I was like, no, I'm just going to focus on my friend here across the table, and we're going to sit here and have a nice lunch. And just as I sit down, he smiles and he says, now I'm going to make it really uncomfortable for you. I am done now. I got to go. Bye. And he got up and he left the table. And I was like, oh, man. So now I was left to sit next to Mr. Eastwood. And as I was sitting there, my chocolate chip cookie. So now I've met him the day before getting my chocolate chip cookie. As I'm sitting there getting ready to eat my cookie, this hand starts coming over onto my cookie, and it's Clint Eastwood trying to steal my cookie. And I couldn't think of what to say. I just couldn't think of what to say. And I'm like, what do you say to Dirty Harry as he's trying to steal your cookie? And I think I just said something like, hands off, not yours, that's mine. Something. And he just laughed. Which is kind of funny.
Because that's what you said to
Oliver. Don't touch my cookie. Oh.